1. Guantanamo Bay. Located off the coast of Cuba, Guantanamo Bay was opened in 2002 under the direction of President Bush. Following the September 11 attacks, Bush initiated the War on Terror and opened Guantanamo Bay to serve as a military prison. The prison has received widespread criticism for indefinite detention without trial and the routine use of torture, including waterboarding and sexual abuse. There have also been reports of several suicides and of numerous suicide attempts. Under the Obama administration, the number of inmates was reduced. However, Guantanamo Bay remains open. Amnesty International has called the prison a major human rights violation, describing it as, quote, the gulag of our times. 2. Alcatraz. Although it closed all the way back in 1963, Alcatraz was notorious in its time and remains one of the most iconic prisons in the world owing to its reputation and unique setting. Located on Alcatraz Island just off San Francisco, the prison's remote and secluded location made it the perfect place to house high-risk and dangerous criminals. Life inside the prison was said to be hell, with many prisoners going insane and committing suicide owing to the relentless violence and poor living conditions. It eventually gained the nickname, Hellcatraz, owing to its reputation, and it housed some of the most notorious criminals of its day, including Al Capone, Mickey Cohen, Machine Gun Kelly, and Robert Stroud, aka the Birdman of Alcatraz. 3. San Quentin State Prison. Serving as the oldest prison in California, San Quentin was opened in 1852 and remains one of the United States' most infamous penitentiaries. It's known as the most populous death row in the country, with the New York Times even deeming it, quote, the largest in the Western Hemisphere. Since 1893, over 400 people have been put to death at San Quentin. It's housed some of the most dangerous men in America, including Charles Manson, Richard Ramirez, and Richard Chase. The prison is also notable for being extremely old, outdated, and dirty, with prisoners receiving poor health care. 4. Muhanga Prison. Formerly known as Gitarama Prison, Rwanda Muhanga Prison was built to house just 400 prisoners, but ended up housing 7,000. As you can imagine, living conditions inside the prison are deplorable, and many prisoners suffer from gangrene owing to the filthy accommodations. Given that they're often forced to stand all day on the wet and dirty ground, the health complications are many and severe. There have even been reports of cannibalism. Bridget Troyan of the International Committee of the Red Cross has succinctly stated, quote, the conditions here are completely inhumane. 5. Carandiru Penitentiary. Built back in 1920, Brazil's Carandiru was once South America's largest prison, housing more than 8,000 inmates. The prison was infamous for its poor quality of life, rampant health issues, and numerous human rights violations. The latter eventually culminated in the Carandiru massacre. The event began after a game of football, as a fight between two teams escalated into a chaotic prison riot. The military police were called in and proceeded to massacre the inmates, many of whom were unarmed and killed in defensive positions. By the end of the riot, 111 prisoners were dead, riddled with 515 bullets in total. Over 60 police officers were convicted for their crimes, but the trials have since been deemed null. 6. ADX Florence. Located in the Fremont County of Colorado, ADX Florence is a supermax prison, one level higher than maximum security, and housing the absolute worst criminals in the country. These criminals are often extremely violent and typically pose a serious threat to prison staff, other inmates, or even national security. Florence houses just 359 prisoners, each of whom is kept in a small concrete cell for 23 hours a day. Mental health often deteriorates inside the cells, and at least 8 inmates have apparently committed suicide over the years. Some of the prison's most notable inmates include the 1993 World Trade Center bombers, numerous terrorists with links to Al-Qaeda, the Boston Marathon bomber, the Unabomber, Terry Nichols of the Oklahoma City bombing, and Mexican drug lord El Chapo. 7. Sabaneta Prison. This prison in Maracaibo, Venezuela was an extremely violent prison that operated from 1958 to 2013. Built to house just 700 prisoners, Sabaneta was home to 3,700 by the time it closed in the early 2010s. The prison was entirely run by the inmates themselves, complete with a hierarchy of gangs and leaders known as prans. One of the prans was Mocho Edwin, a man who had committed triple homicide in the late 2000s. Naturally, the prison was rife with violence. In 1994, inmates intentionally started a fire and killed those who tried to escape, reportedly resulting in over 150 deaths. In 2013, the final year of the prison's operation, 69 prisoners were killed by other inmates. 8. Diyarbakir Prison. Located in southeastern Turkey, Diyarbakir is one of the most inhumane prisons in the world owing to rampant and systemic prisoner abuse. The prison is notorious for overcrowding, and prisoners are often subjected to various forms of torture, including sleep deprivation, physical beatings, and even a dog that was trained to bite genitals. Mehdi Zana, the former mayor of Diyarbakir, who spent over a decade in the prison, revealed that new prisoners were thrown into a bathtub full of human waste. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Things were especially bad when Diyarbakir served as a military prison in the 1980s, with many killed by guards and dozens taking their own lives.